Hello, it's Tom here with another FODEUSS breakdown. We're breaking down the FODEUSS draft, an all-time fantasy baseball draft of any player throughout the entire history of baseball that we then simulate here in Out of the Park Baseball. Not in my version of it, but in our commissioner's version, of course. And today, as always, we're just going to go down the list of guys. This time, the guys that were drafted in rounds 13 and 14, and look at their stats, how they look in my imports. Again, as always, not necessarily how they look in the actual game. But what I'm looking at when I'm scouting these guys is what we're going to see today. And kicking it off, starting off round 13, we've got Al Kaline, drafted by Jedi Marine. And as we can see, this is a great way to get us kicked off. Just a great pick. Just an all-around offensive powerhouse, looks like, basically. With pretty good defense and right. You're not going to probably want to play him at... Well, I guess you could play him at first base because it's not going to matter too much. I think probably Heavy Johnson is going to have a similar rating at first base, and I'm planning on starting him there. So if your outfield is like stocked with really good defenders, playing him at first might be a good option here. But you can see his outfield stats aren't bad. So I mean, you could even stick him out in left if you want to hide him a little bit more, but I don't think he looks terrible out in right field for sure. It's got the great eye, great power, and just the BABIP number is like a little bit mediocre, but not bad. And base running is pretty decent. Like he's gonna steal a few bags probably. Not super aggressive, but he's got really good base running and really good stealing ability if he does take off. So great pick, Jedi Marine, getting us going. And let's move on to the next one. Looks like Sith Overlord with Jonathan Papelbon. A lot of these closers just looking really good. Looking very similar, just really good stuff usually. And Papelbon, no different. Just got the great stuff. Got 3 great pitches, especially the slider and the splitter. Downright nasty with the splitter. And, the stuff is what he's leaning on the most, but the movement is really good and the control is decent. And you get the 30 stamina. Basically, we're seeing 25 or 30. I just think that 30 might be really helpful to have. Yeah, just not too much to say. Just a really all-around great closer, looks like. No flaws, and as long as the stamina holds up, he should be really good in your bullpen. Maybe not using him as a closer, I don't know. Look at the rosters really quick. I should have had this open already. Oh, wait, I can do that. Hang on. I can do it here. I just want to check out Sith Overlord's bullpen to see if he's probably going to be using Papelbon as his closer, or if he's already got somebody that looks even better. Let's see. Well, he's got Mark Eichhorn already, but I think that's going to be more of a middle relief guy. So yeah, as a closer, I think Papelbon will be great. Looks like he's got the stuff. Okay, moving right along. Let's look at another reliever taken here, Dellin Betances. And this was a shrewd pick by Dark Lord of the Empire, I feel like. This is a guy that's been kind of a FODEUSS staple, but, since he wasn't a closer, at least not in this, his great season, he was more of a setup guy that year. Might be kind of an easy guy to overlook, but again, just the 80 stuff and just 3 crazy pitches. He's going to be so hard to hit. The movement is decent. The control is, your one flaw, but that's Nolan Ryan had the same control. Didn't stop me from drafting him, so I'm not steering away from this too much. And again, he's got the 30 stamina. This is one where I don't know if we'll get his stats. No, I'm going to look really quick because I thought maybe it should be even higher than 30 because I think in this season, which was 2014. Yeah, he threw 90 innings, which I thought maybe, get bumped up to like 35 or 40, but he pitched in 70 games and threw 90 innings. That's pretty high stamina for a reliever. So it just seems like they kind of cap the relievers at 30. But, what are you going to do? That's what they do. So let's see. But anyway, really good pick here, Dylan Betances, especially if you're a Yankee fan. I know some of us just kind of steer clear of Yankees just because, even though we shouldn't. I got Bill Dickey, though. Yankees from like 1940 or before, like who cares? Wasn't alive to hate the Yankees then. All right, let's look at the next guy. Oh, Autumn with Paul Blair. Love this pick. Paul Blair just seemed like such an exciting player of his time. Unfortunately, again, a little bit before my time with this guy. I think maybe his career went into when I was alive, but by the time I was actually following baseball, he was retired. But look at the defense. I mean, you just get this crazy defense in center field. And I feel like it's another guy that kind of fits Autumn's profile with the speed and the defense. And so, yeah, if you're just building a team around pitching, speed, and defense, this is a great guy to have on your team. And maybe some of these contact numbers aren't quite as high as I would like them to be. But he does have good power, at least. He's got really good gap power, and he's going to hit some dingers as well as be like, really solid on the base paths and give you just elite defense in center field. We haven't seen too many outfielders with these kind of ratings. Seen more infielders with those kind of ratings, I feel like, maybe. Shortstops in particular. And then we got tunes with Kenny Lofton, 1995. Another back-to-back center fielders here. But yeah, good pick by Autumn, Paul Blair. So let's look at Lofton. Okay, so this is 1995, Kenny Lofton. And the speed is crazy. The stealing aggressiveness is 90 and the ability is 80. So he's just going to be swiping tons of bags. He is going to be getting some hits and getting on base that way so he can steal bags. His eye leaves a little to be desired, and his defense in center field, really good. If we hadn't just looked at Paul Blair, it would look a lot better. But I did pull in 94, Kenny Lofton, as well, just because I thought that looked like kind of clearly the better year. And the numbers, you take a small hit on your defense from 60 to 55, I guess. But I do think it overall looks better, especially this BABIP number, which is awesome. And he's not going to strike out much. This is the guy that's going to get a lot more hits. Plus the eye is better, so he's going to be able to take advantage of this base running prowess by getting on base more. So I think I would lean towards 94, but probably get the reports from NT just to make sure before you make any moves. And then we got Yak with Monty Irvin, 1940, which that's obviously still in the Negro League days, so we can't look at that one. But let's look at the stats really quick, just for fun. I just feel bad just completely skipping over these guys. 1940, he hit 380. It was one of these like really shortened seasons, but he had this 170 OPS plus, OPS of 1,045. Looks like, only 39 games on record, but he did have 4 homers and 11 doubles in that time. So he should have pretty decent gap power and power, I would think. The next season, when only 49 games, I might look at 41 too. I don't know if you've already looked at the scouting reports, Yak, but in 41 he played 10 more games, and he had, just in 49 games, he had 10 homers and 14 doubles. He led the league in doubles, led the league in hits, and hit 387, and his OPS plus was 205. So 1941 immediately looks like the best season to me, but maybe you already saw the reports for both years. I don't know. I think I would look at 41, though. And now we got Minnesota with Takashi Sato. Just another one of these bullpen guys that looks awesome. They're so tempting. They look awesome. And then you watch them be awesome on everybody else's team. No, I don't know. I'm just kidding. I've just had really bad luck for some reason. But he does look amazing. With 4 really good pitches, 4 pitches that are all 70 or higher. That kind of variety is a little bit rare for a reliever like this. He does only have the 25 stamina. But this guy's going to be able to come in and get a few guys out. And I know Minnesota's just loading up his bullpen. Let's look at some of the guys he's got so far. He's the guy with all the players, right? Yeah. So Sato, I don't know, Vandermeer maybe using as a reliever, but he's got Kimbrel and Nathan. Oh, it's Kimbrel, Nathan, and Sato. Man. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. So the bullpen looking quite solid for Minnesota. And just overall, the team looking like one of the teams to beat for sure. Beating a dead horse at this point every time we go over one of his picks. Okay, next we got Vladimir Guerrero 2000 picked by RX. So let's look at him. And just looking pretty well-rounded, right? Everything is like not spectacular, but the only thing that's not great, or not good at least, is the eye. The only thing other thing that's not great is maybe the gap power. But looking all around really good with great power. Kind of like the power numbers, like for most of the guys, because we're trying. I feel like almost all of us are trying to get guys that'll put the ball in play, kind of first and foremost. And if they have the power, that's great. And like those guys that have both, like are already gone, kind of. So to get this late in the draft is really good. This combination of contact and power. And then he's, again, really well-rounded on the base paths and really decent defense in right field with a great arm. So, pretty great pick by RX. Yeah, I think just the eye is the only weakness, but we've seen that with other really incredible stat guys. And I don't think it's going to be too big of a problem. And it does make sense. Vlad is kind of notoriously a free swinger. And a great bad ball hitter, So even though he's chasing pitches, a lot of times he's getting hits on those. Hopefully that translates into the simulation. Okay, so then we had Cubman with Mark Grace. And he didn't pick a year. Let's see if I can see what year I picked. Yeah, I picked 87, Mark Grace. Looks like. Oh, no, that's not right, I don't think. Age 30. That's definitely not 87. Let's figure this out really quick. I imported some of these guys quite a while ago, so it's hard to remember what year. Age 30 looks like must have been 95 or 93. I'm thinking 95 because it's the highest OPS plus. And oh yeah, and he had the 51 doubles. Yeah, I remember when I imported him, I was like, I thought the gap power would be higher, but I think again it's just punishing him a little bit because he only had 23 doubles in 94. He did have 39 and 93, but it's just not giving him his full max stats here because his lead-up seasons maybe weren't as great as they could have been. But good defense at first. Good stealing ability. That's about and decent base running. So he's not super fast and not super aggressive, but he's not going to hurt you on the base paths. And he's got this great avoid Ks. That's probably his biggest strength. He's going to put the ball in play. They're not always going to be hits, but they're going to make things happen. And if you're going against a team that has kind of a weak defense, just not striking out is huge, right? So good pick by Cubman. I know it's a favorite, and that's, like I mention all the time, that just makes it a little bit more fun putting together your dream team. Next we have CC Sabathia, drafted by Sean. This is 2008 Sabathia, looks like. And CC a little underwhelming, I thought. But I'm guessing you got the reports. And so I'm guessing my pitchers are just not quite showing up like they are on NT's reports. I know I've seen, not very many reports myself. I do have $5 now that I do plan on probably spending on a few pitcher reports, actually. But the most of the ones I've seen are batter reports, and those just seem to line up a lot better than the pitching reports. But since I haven't been able to afford any pitching reports, this is what I'm going off of. And he's like really balanced here. He's got really good control, and nothing that's just like terrible. So he's pretty good. I mean, and three of these changes are good. Or three of these pitches are good, especially the change, which is a 60. So if all of these numbers get a little bit of a boost in NT's report, I can see why you'd go for a guy like this just because of this great balance. So yeah, I'm sure probably a good pick from Sean because I do believe he's spending the money to get these reports. Next we have Deacon White, another FODEUSS staple ever since the first Out of the Park season when did he win the league MVP for Lloyd or something? He was in contention, I know that, in the first OOTP season. And he's looking really good here as well. Just, I mean, surprising power. It's what you get out of these 1870s guys. If they hit 5 home runs, they're like, oh, Babe Ruth. No, well, not quite Babe Ruth, but, Ted Williams. I don't know. And the contact numbers are just ridiculous. The BABIP combined with the avoid Ks, he should just be, near the league leaders in hitting, you would think. And these stats don't look great, but they have these really good potential ratings, and these catcher ratings look really good, especially, for those who haven't seen the previous episodes, or if you just you want a little refresher. Like, we've been looking at a lot of catchers, and we haven't seen a single one with an overall rating of over 65, and it looks like he has the potential to be at least 50 here. And like, these ratings have been, almost near the max for some of these guys. So yeah, actually looks like you could probably stick him at catcher, especially as your backup catcher. I know the guy that I just drafted that we won't talk about today, so I won't talk about too long, but Jim O'Rourke, I guess I'm basically planning on using him as my backup catcher, or at least that's going to be one of his roles. And his defense doesn't even look this good, but he does have a solid overall rating of 45. It's not like 35 with the potential. It's like 45, but then I think it's just 45 blocking and then 50 and 50 on the framing and arm. But his offensive numbers look kind of like this, and I'm just like, well, I'm not going to find that from a catcher that has good defense at this point in the draft. They're all gone. So it's just that question of whether you want to have that hole in your lineup and just have a really great defensive backup catcher and just like kind of eat it on those days, as far as like having one off like spot in the lineup that's a little bit compromised, or if you want to try to keep the lineup going and have that all important catcher defense be a little bit lacking on those days. So we'll see what I do, but for now the plan is to mostly use him as the backup catcher, though he also can play the outfield and first base. So there are other options, and he's just such a good bat that like I could use him as a DH or pinch hitter. Like he could slide into other roles depending on, if Cal McVay gets hurt, for instance. Okay, let's get into the next one, which is Kenley Jansen. Great pick by Wang here, Deacon White. And then Kenley Jansen picked by Pointy. And again, there's going to be a theme with the closers that people have picked. People haven't really dropped the ball on any of these closer picks, it doesn't seem like to me. They all look really good. And Kenley, no exception. Just impeccable stuff and control. What a great combo. One thing he might be lacking is the movement a little bit, but 3 great pitches. Just going to be striking out guys and not walking guys. So I expect him to be awesome. He does only have that 25 stamina in my report. Might be different in NT's, but one thing to watch. I feel like if you're doing this, you know, with the actual relief pitchers, which why wouldn't you? Most people, it seems like most people are. I'm just scared of it. But I think if you're doing this, the thing is to kind of keep an eye on it. And if like one of your guys starts to struggle, like maybe set him down for a few days, maybe even, I don't know if you're allowed to just put somebody on the 10-day or 15-day injured list, even if they're not hurt. But I would think about doing that when a closer starts to struggle, because I think it just starts to snowball. Or you could just put him in a you know, a really low usage role for a few days, like where he's not going to get used very much, and then slide him back into the closer role or whatever his primary role is. Just because I feel like that's where I went wrong. It's like I had all the great relievers, like I had a stacked bullpen with these kind of guys, and once it started to go bad, I just didn't know what to do. I didn't have the backup plan that I think you need. So anyway, that's just one idea. I don't even know if that would work. But it's the kind of thing I rack my brain about at night when I'm trying to sleep. So let's look up Bismarcky. We don't have the report. Again, it's just there's some special voodoo that NT does when he imports these historical black players that I don't know the voodoo. So, but in 1923, what a season for Bismarcky. He led his league in batting average, on base percentage, slugging percentage, OPS, and OPS plus. And he's a catcher, so I know that he's been drafted every year since we started allowing the Negro League guys, but I don't know that he's ever had that much success in FODEUSS. I feel like it's just kind of random with these guys sometimes, but hopefully this will be the year. Because, yeah, these stats are just ridiculous. I feel like it's just like having that only that 51 game sample size. Sometimes it messes with the defense and stuff, but I don't know. Yeah, I can definitely see why you would go back to him. And I believe Amazing has picked him before, so he probably did well, actually. Or at least well enough to pick him again. But yeah, we don't have him over here, but this is just what I'm looking at on his baseball reference page. And then next we have, oh, it's me with George Davis. And I think I mentioned in the thread, I was having a tough time with third base. I wanted another left-handed bat, and George Davis is a switch hitter, so that's even better as far as I'm concerned. And I wanted really good defense at all of the three main infield positions of second, short, and third base. And I already got really good defense with George Wright and Eddie Collins up the middle, so I just wanted to round it out with really good D at third. And George Davis, you can see, has the really good infield ratings and the 70 defense at third base. So there was one other guy I was looking at that had 80 defense at third base, but his offensive numbers weren't nearly as good. So even though his offensive numbers aren't as elite as some others that we've seen, balancing it with this defense and this base running, this just seemed like the guy. But yeah, I was kicking around a few ideas actually for third baseman. Ultimately pretty happy with this pick, and like I said in the thread, I'm really looking for the defense out of him. If he gets some hits, he's going to be batting in the bottom third of the order, and if he gives us any offense, that's just going to be icing on the cake. So yeah, that's George Davis, 1897. Another guy played a hell of a long time. I think he was one, like in the early years of baseball, there weren't that many guys that had really long careers, but George Davis and Jim O'Rourke, I believe, are both in the Hall of Fame, and they're both of those two of those guys that just had that longevity. I just want to make sure that I know Jim is, because I was just reading about him, and I read George Davis's Sabre profile too, but I just forget that. Yeah, in the Hall of Fame, both with great mustaches too, of course. And I like that he has a mustache here. He actually kind of looks like George Davis, except George Davis doesn't have this little weird soul patch thing. Teammates appreciate his quiet confidence. I love it. Okay, let's go on to the next guy. Noma. Lloyd picking Noma. 2000, year 2000, Garcia Parra. And Noma looking really good. The defense at short is a little compromised just because he's going to make a few errors, but his range and his arm are great. And he's still got an overall 55 at short, so definitely not like unplayable there. But just these contact numbers, he looks like one of these 1800s guys because he just had such a great season with the batting average. I would expect to see his power numbers a little higher, at least the gap power, but that you can live with that. I feel like you can live with these three numbers if you got these three. So I've said it over and over, and I feel like I've backed it up with the guys that I've picked mostly. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Okay, let's get into the last pick of round 13, who is Gaylord Perry. And he's really befuddling me here by not picking years ever, forcing me to look at multiple years. And we did that with Gaylord here. We got 3 different years. Okay, so the first year is 1966 that we got. And I think this one turned out to be the best year, actually. I just was like a little bit whelmed. Not quite underwhelmed, but not overwhelmed either. Just a little whelmed. He does have really good stamina, good defense as a pitcher, and these numbers aren't terrible. He's got the really good control, decent movement, decent stuff. None of the pitches looked that great, which I thought maybe the screwball at least would look awesome. So I was a little bit nonplussed. So I wanted to look at a couple more years because it's hard to pick the best year, and this is 1972. I really feel like 72 is just getting beaten down because it was such a good year for pitchers that they're being compared to their peers, and it's just hurting their stats because Gaylord had a great year that year. And then this one, 74, which is looking a lot closer to 66, and the screwball does look a lot better. So it's like 1 year where he has a really good pitch that he can lean on, and the stamina is crazy, 85 stamina this year. Although, with the star rating, it's down a half star from 66. You know what to make of that, but I don't know. I think it is kind of between 74 and 66. Maybe some of the years in between weirdly get boosted, and I've definitely seen that before. And with some of the picks that Lloyd has made, where I was like, oh, that wasn't the year I was looking at, because looking at just the baseball reference page, it might not look nearly as good, but it's just the game. It's a very complicated formula where it's doing a lot of comparing against the league for that season. So even though the numbers might be down, they might be better comparatively, And then again, Heels kicking off round 14 with his next pick, who was Chris Sale. And Chris Sale was going to be my next pick, full disclosure, but I didn't have another pick for like 30 picks, so I wasn't really shocked to see him go or super sad, because I was like, somebody's probably going to take Chris Sale. But if nobody had taken him in those 30 picks, I would have grabbed him. But alas, Heels got him. And this, I think, is 2017. It doesn't say, but I believe. Let me look him up over here really quick. Sorry about these small delays. Age 27. Yeah. So yeah, at the beginning of his 2017 season, he would have been 27. So yeah, that's got to be what this is. Yeah, and he would have turned 28 early, like a couple months into the season. So it says that it's his year 28 season. But this is the year he struck out almost 13 guys per 9. He led the league in FIP. And yeah, I would think the stuff should be a little higher even because of the 12.9 strikeouts per 9. But, at least all 4 pitches are great. He's got this really good balance. The stamina 65, I was going to use him as a reliever, so I wasn't worried about that at all. I don't know how you're going to use him, Heels. I think he could be really good as a starter as well. I wouldn't really advise either thing. It's totally up to you. And what the rest of your staff is looking like, and if you feel like you need a lefty in the rotation or in the pen. He's nasty against lefties. I was going to use him as like the lefty guy. If you look at these ratings here, really nasty against lefties. So that's why that was going to be his role on my team, which is a waste maybe of a pitcher as good as Chris Sale. But when you have when you have the staff, and also like with these guys, if you are using them in the bullpen, they can be the guys you slot in as starters if somebody does go down. Hopefully that won't happen, but it's good to have a backup plan. All right, Captain Pizza Party. Craig Biggio here, 1998 version, picked by RX. And I think I grabbed a few more years of Biggio because I thought 98, I mean, maybe the reports that you saw look different, or maybe you didn't get the reports, but I was thinking 98 was not looking that spectacular, although I wouldn't say bad. Like, he's got this really good base running. He can bunt for a hit. He's plays a pretty good second base. It's just his weak arm, which if you're playing second base is not that important. And then the offensive numbers have this great balance. He's got no holes. Just nothing really spectacular off the charts about Biggio. So I did look at a couple more years. So if that's 98, then this would be 95. 95 Biggio. And it's maybe looking slightly better offensively, and the base running very similar. Just the defense takes even a bigger hit here, so that probably wouldn't be your answer. And then I looked at 97. And it's looking more like the 98, but maybe this overall, BABIP combined with the Boyd Ks, and the defense is about the same as 98. All these numbers look really similar. I don't know, the speed and everything. Yeah, I don't know, 97 or 98, I guess. It's probably where I'd go. But Biggio, not bad at all, especially if he's a backup on your team. Let's see really quick if RX already has a second baseman. No, I think that's the first second baseman he's drafted, so obviously he's leaning on him to be the starter at this point, but you can always draft. There's going to be more. There's still great guys available out there, so you could always pivot. And whoever you pick as your backup could end up, you can start him. Like, I'm personally kind of worried about Tommy Holmes just because of his past performance in FODEUSS, which I do think is a factor that, you should consider sometimes. Obviously, we're playing in a different year, and the hope is that he'll do better. That's why I still, picked him. But, I'm going to have to come up with some kind of backup plan in case he does struggle again, because that is a real possibility. So with any position, you should try to have at least a second guy that can fill in. And so that means you're probably going to have some guys that can play multiple positions and can fill in depending on who gets hurt or who struggles. All right, Hall of Famer Rod Carew, he converted. Minnesota with what would have been my pick here, so he's going to have 2 picks this round. And great pick. And I wish I could have had a pick here, but it's okay. I'm not too worried about the way things are going. Lost a lot of guys that I would have liked to have, but you're just always going to have that. And I think I'm doing a lot better this year. It only took 7 years, finally accepting it. But yeah, just the off the charts contact numbers, which is what you'd expect for Rod Carew. And this versatility where he can play really good first or second. That's really great to have. And really good base running. So Hall of Famer Rod Carew, looking quite awesome. And Minnesota continuing to walk this line of putting together this elite squad and getting Twins greats, has so many of them now. And they all seem to stack up so well in the game. That's awesome. Okay, so then amazing with the Babe Ruth pick. So every year somebody picks the pitcher version of Babe Ruth. The one player that we're allowed to do that with in the game because he had this kind of dividing line in his career where he was like maybe for the 1919 season, but pretty much wasn't used in both roles at the same time. So there's the pitcher Babe Ruth, and there's outfielder Babe Ruth, but something interesting about pitcher Babe Ruth. So this is 1916 Babe Ruth, and the pitching numbers don't look insane, but he has two really good pitches, right? I mean, he's got 85 stamina. He's really good at holding runners. Like, if you're gonna use him in a bullpen role or something, he's gonna be decent, good movement. I think the three pitches and everything, but it's kind of like I was looking at this and the batting ratings are kind of crazy, right? Like, and it made me realize something about this game that it's looking at your overall career more than I thought. I think it must be, right? Because if you look at his batting numbers from 1916, I mean, they were good. Like, it makes sense. Like, he hit, I think, 270 or something. Let's look really quick. It wasn't like he was, hitting like like a normal pitcher. Like, the potential was already there, obviously. But if you look at his batting numbers from 1916, he hit 272, 322 on base, 419 slugging, 122 OPS plus. He had 3 home runs, 5 doubles. So if you look at this like gap, I mean, he did only he only had 152 plate appearances. So those numbers, considering that, maybe aren't that low. But I mean, this 70 power with potential for 85, like, it looks like he could be used as a DH. He has no good defensive ratings. Like, you could play, these are just ratings from being a pitcher, because I think he was basically used as a pitcher and a pinch hitter. He doesn't even have good, so like, I don't know. Yeah, I was just kind of floored by this. And maybe this doesn't look the same in Inti's report at all. But I don't know if that would be sort of like going against the spirit of the rule, like to use him as a hitter. And he's not going to be as good as Yankees Babe Ruth as a hitter. So you're getting an inferior version, but still looked like a playable version, right? I mean, I don't know. I guess the spirit is to use him as a pitcher. You could do the Ohtani rule with him. I think that would be totally fair if you used him as a starter and let him hit on those days. And then I don't know how unfair it would be to let him DH, because those are supposed to be his batting ratings from that season. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, there's a little bit of a conundrum there maybe, but very interesting. Next we have Scott Rowland right here, alphabetically, very close. And this was Pointy with this pick. It was amazing with the last pick. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. And Rowland just having that great balance combined with spectacular defense at third. I mean, to be honest, not looking too far off from George Davis. George Davis's numbers were kind of in the same range. I think his stars were too. And this defense, 70 defense at third. So really good pick by Pointy. I don't know if that's your starter, but I think it is. And if that's your starter at third, I think that's very solid, especially with the D. Like, and I'm just, I feel like we are in the defensive era, right? So having a good D makes sense to me. Like, it seems like it's going to be important in the defensive era. All right, let's look at, although my outfield defense is not the best, aside from Willie Mays in center. But I feel like I put together a really good starting infield, at least. Now we got Wang with Deacon Philippi, drafting back-to-back Deacons, which feels like kind of a power move. And I don't know, man. I don't know about Deacon Philippi, because, like, every time I get the game, he looks like this. But then Lloyd picked him with his first pick, I think twice. And he did do really well, right? Like in the first couple years, I think. And then I think he struggled a bit last year. And it's not like this looks bad. I'm not trying to imply that. It just doesn't look like first pick by someone who is one of the shrewdest drafters in the game. So I think that the reports that Lloyd is looking at and that NT is getting are probably going to look a lot better. but he does have this elite control and 3 really good pitches. So just having that is great. It's just these numbers. I would want one of them to be higher, like either the stuff higher or the movement higher, but at least they're not in yellow. And he's got the crazy 90 stamina, which I think does factor in, right? So yeah, I would look at the reports from NT, but and we'll all get our imports like after the draft. Like, so if you didn't get the scouting reports for all your guys, you'll get that chance to look at their reports. I can't remember if we get a chance to change years after we see that, or to ask for more scouting reports after we see that. I can't remember if it's like, nope, this is when you only get it after the rosters are locked and the years are locked. I'm pretty sure it's that. So any scouting reports you want, if you're not sure on a year, you want to do that before you get those final reports, I think. But I'm sure NT could clarify. And yeah, I'm just not remembering right now because it's been so long that since we actually finished a draft. Anyway, Deacon Philippi, I think, looking really good. I didn't mean to like downplay how good he looks. I do think he looks really good. It's just like he does look to me more like a guy that would be drafted in the 14th round than a guy that would be drafted in the first round. So I think getting him here is great value, and probably could do a lot of different roles for you. Okay, let's look at Duke Snyder, drafted by Heels. And I think Duke had a pretty clear year of 1954, so I just went with that. But yeah, he looked really good too, so I didn't pull in any more years. It's just that he is going to strike out a bit, and I think that's kind of the story of his career. But everything else, elite basically, elite power, elite gap power, elite BABIP, and good defense in center. I think Minnesota said that he really struggled in center. And so I think last year he tried to use him as a DH. And I think maybe he still kind of struggled. Just the strikeouts maybe are just a big problem. But, I mean, if you look at the rest of these numbers, like, it seems like the kind of guy who, if anybody could compensate for this strikeout number, it's him. And, I think also with these outfield ratings, you've got Mickey Mantle, right? So you're kind of automatically probably sticking him in left or right field. And I think if you put him there, maybe left is best because of the weaker arm. So yeah, I think as a left fielder, like these outfield ratings shouldn't be terrible. And you could watch, kind of see if he starts making a bunch of errors, then adjust his role. But I think as a left fielder, Duke could be really good. And then we have Cubby with Gabby Hartnett, another pick with no year. But I thought there maybe, okay, I grabbed a couple years of Gabby here. Let's see, yeah, okay, so 1928, Gabby. And the defense is looking really good, I think, especially compared to what we're seeing. Like, he's near the top with a great arm and then this great power. As I've said before, I'd like to see this and this flipped probably for my preferences, but at least this contact isn't bad, right? And the power's great. So if you're getting this kind of offense out of your catcher too, like, can't be too picky with your catcher offense. Like, that looks really good. I did also grab one more year, which looks like it is, if that was 28, then this must be 37. Yeah, 1937, Hartnett. And this looks even better. This does kind of flip those two numbers on their head, like where the contact looks really good and the power, but look at the defense. Looks like one of the elite catchers that we've seen, like with this 65 number, which I believe is still the highest overall catcher rating we've seen. So I think this 1930, even though he's older, I was like a little bit wary of it. 1937, he's 36 years old, but it looks pretty awesome. So I think if you're watching this Cubby, 1937 Gabby. All right, now we got RX with not Justin, but Shane Bieber, 2020. And the 2020 seasons are really interesting, and I don't I think after this, RX drafted another one with Juan Soto. And it's interesting to see how much they're being punished for a shorter season and how much they're not. Like you can see it right off the bat, the stamina looks decent. Like so they're not being like crushed for it being a shorter season. And the 5 pitches, 2 of which are really good, and 3 of which are good. So that's a great mix. Really good control. The home runs allowed, not too bad, and the stuff pretty good. Of course, you'd hope to see the stuff a little higher, but there's some mystery at work, and also NT's report might have it way higher. I think it likely does. But this is I think, a really good pick in the 14th round. RX having a really good draft, I would say, for the most part. Really nailed it when he drafted Edgar and Matt Harvey. Sorry. Okay, next we have Leroy Matlock, drafted by Minnesota, 1935. Let's just look him up over here really quick so we can look at his stats. We got another historical black player here. Make sure that it was 35. Yeah, 1935. So, oh yeah, 8-0, 1.52 ERA. Led his league in ERA plus, a 336 ERA plus. That's like Pedro 2000 kind of number. Led his league in FIP. Led his league in WHIP. Led his league in walks per 9. And I'm guessing that Minnesota probably saw the scouting report on this guy. I think some of these Negro League pitchers are just going to tear up the league this year. And I feel bad that I missed the boat. Like, I didn't have the money for the scouting reports. And I do feel like if you're just drafting them blind, it's a little risky. So I didn't want to take the risk, and if you don't gamble, you can't win. But I hopefully can, like, the thing is, like, some of the people who've been playing the draft so long, switching gears to these kind of guys has left some of the traditional guys like Cy Blanton there for me. So I'm hoping those guys will just do good enough. Let's hope they do good enough. And then we got Yak with Gary Sheffield. We got a few more picks after this. Looks like 5 more. Try to get it under an hour again, but I must have been rambling again. Damn it. So I think this is 96 Sheffield. Yeah, that's wrong. This is 96, I think, and it looked like the best to me. And the defense isn't great, but it's adequate probably. The eye is absolutely elite. The power is really good. And the void Ks is really good. So it's just the BABIP number is a little down, but I do think it's ultimately going to be the best year for him still. I did pull in one more year, which I think was 2000. I think this is 2000 Sheffield. Defense looking about the same. And maybe the offense is looking a little better here just because the eye comes down a little, but the power's the same. The void Ks is the same, and the BABIP is a little higher. But then the gap power is a little lower. So it's kind of like 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. Like, I don't know. But 96 or 2000 look like they're going to be pretty good players on your team. So I would probably go with one of those years. Oh, here we go. Tunes with Paul Assenmacher. And like, almost felt like Tunes was trolling with the Assenmacher pick. But then I imported him. And Assenmacher actually looks awesome. More like Awesome-macher. That just came to me in a fit of genius. But he's got 3 really good pitches. He's got he looks crazy, actually. It just only has the 25 stamina, but also, like, if you look at his ratings against lefties, they're even better. So, like, if you're using him as your lefty, like, one-out guy, your loogie, like, this is a good guy for that. He's actually a totally totally worthy pick in FODEUSS, I think. So good job with the assenmacher pick. I feel like this is the kind of guy that NT would assign your team if you didn't have a 40-man roster, which, spoiler alert, it's looking like I might not by the end of the draft, but I'll be close. I'll have like 37 or 38 guys probably. So even if I don't have any money to sign a couple more guys, I can live with a couple NT assignments on my team, I suppose. But yeah, Tunes, sorry that I doubted you, man. This is a really good pick. Paul Assenmacher. Good job. And he's been such a meme in FODEUSS. Like, I don't know why. It's just like one of those like, I feel like, for the Indians, maybe it's Paul Assenmacher, but for the Mariners, it's something like Paul Spoljaric. Just these random lefty relievers from the 90s. That, I don't know. They have weird names, too. And then we got Autumn with Alan Trammell. And I got to say, I think this is your starting shortstop. I think, I was like, before I drafted George Wright, Trammell was in serious consideration. I was thinking about a few different shortstops, and he just looks really good. Like, he's got the really good defense, and he looks awesome overall. Just gap power is like his only weakness, but he's got really well-rounded base running. He can bump for a hit. He's got really great contact. He doesn't strike out. And, the base running might not be quite Maury Wills, but what I was thinking is like, because remember what I was mentioning about the defensive ladder and how if you have good enough defense at shortstop, then you can move to third or second and it's going to be fine. I was thinking Trammell starting at shortstop and then Wills at second might be deadly. And then you'd have Dave Cash as kind of as a bench guy. But I think I'd rather have that Trammell and Wills middle infield than Trammell and Cash. But I do think Trammell's your starter. This just looks like the guy. And whether you want to use Wills at second or Cash at second, or Wills off the bench, Cash off the bench, maybe a little platooning, whatever you want to do. But I do think that Trammell was a really good pick, and I would start him. All right, Elston Howard, 1961 by Dark Lord of the Empire. I remember thinking that I thought Elston would look a little better. Yeah, but the catching defense is really good. Like, and the arm is crazy. So as far as like shutting down the running game, because I don't think we've seen an 80 arm. I think we've only seen 70 as the peak. So might be 80 in NT's report. But yeah, as far as a defensive catcher who actually does have a really good BABIP and isn't going to strike out a ton, so he is going to get you a lot of base hits. You just wish maybe the eye was better or the power numbers were better. But, he's not doing much on the bases. But as far as like a defensive specialist, which is a totally viable way to go with catchers, like Wang had so much success with Charles Johnson that one year that he kept him. Although Charles surprised with his bat that year as well, I think. But his defense was just insane. And especially in the era we're playing in where I think there is going to be a lot of running, this is a really good pick. I just thought maybe the overall offensive numbers would look a little better, but you're getting that defense. And it's kind of like drafting Ozzie Smith, You got to have that defense. Okay, Leon Day. We're almost there. Let's just look at Leon's stats. I feel bad that in the earlier breakdowns, I just kind of skipped over some of these guys. I wasn't thinking that we could just look at their stats and talk about them a little, but we totally can. So we're going with 46 Leon Day, which was actually his last season, and it was a great season. And it's, he had just come back from the war, and the next year, Jackie Robinson would break the color barrier. But what a crazy year. 13-2, 2.39 ERA, 2.43 FIP. Led the league in lowest hits allowed and strikeouts per 9. So it looks like the numbers should be really good. And he was still only 29 at this point, too. So it's not, even though it was his last year, it's not like he was really old or something. So he should, still get credit for kind of being in his prime. And I wonder, like, since he didn't play in the 2 previous seasons, that's not factored in. So you're just getting this one really good season. That might help even too. So I think Leon Day, really good pick by Sith Overlord. Hopefully, I mean, I don't know if you guys, if like some of the newer players are getting their scouting reports. I gotta admit, I look at the roster and it looks like some people's money hasn't really changed at all. So I'm like, not getting the scouting reports, but you know, yeah, it could still totally work out. I haven't gotten scouting reports for 95% of the guys I've drafted, so I can't talk shit on that front. Okay, and then we've got the last pick of round 14. I think we're just going to get in under 2 hours. We got Sweet Lou Whitaker. And since we didn't get a year here from Marine, I did pull in a couple years. And this is 83 Whitaker. And really good D at second base. And really, pretty well-rounded offensively. Lacking in the power, but the eye is good and the contact is good. So he's going to be getting on base, whether via hits or walks. And then when he's on base, he's got really good base running skills. Not elite, but really good. And let's look really quick at the other year I pulled in. Of course, it sent us all the way to the top. So that was 83. And this is 87. And I think offensively, just like the eye is like way more elite. And the power's a lot, like these numbers were the ones that were down in the other report. Like, so it's kind of like flipped. And star-wise, they're giving him an extra half star here, but I kind of prefer the 83 version to this 87 version. So this would be one case where I would just completely ignore stars and I would go with this because these numbers look weak to me. Even though he's giving you more power, he's walking. The defense isn't as good, and these contact numbers aren't as good, and those are my biggest factors with infielders. So I would probably go with 83. But choice is yours, and as always, what a great way to end the episode. Get the reports from Inti. And that's going to do it for another FODEUSS breakdown. We'll see you guys next week when we go over rounds 15 and 16. Round 15 already almost complete, but I do think it'll probably be next weekend before even if we get done early. If we get done early, I will try to sneak the breakdown down in early, but it's not easy during the week. But anyway, that's going to do it. See you guys next time. Adios.